Touchdown BC is sponsored by CFC. CanadaFootballChat.com is a national amateur football website and a source for high school and recruiting news in Canada. CFC's mission is to promote players, coaches, administrators, teams, and leagues from coast to coast. 40-plus local reporters write CFC's content covering Canadian, NCAA, and CIS recruiting, and high school players and teams across the continent. Touchdown BC is also sponsored by Chris Peckett. Veteran trial lawyer and football coach is now restricting his law practice to motor vehicle personal injury claims. Call his office at 604-519-6060 for a free consultation.
Welcome to Season 3, Episode 4 of Touchdown BC. I'm Ty Clark. This is Adam Kordick. Ty, it was a great weekend of football across our province, and it was even a better week for my high school fantasy football team, the Argyle Sweaters, that beat your Mount Doug Fluties.
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about it, so let's get into some high school action. Week 2 of the regular season for the Eastern Conference and AAA BC high school football is in the books, and with it, some dark horses have started to emerge from the shadows. And while it was still exhibition play for many of the other teams, there was certainly no shortage of exciting games.
West Van, Notre Dame. Jugglers moved the ball downfield, and just like that, Joseph Santolucia puts them up 6-0. On the very next play, Adam Turin converts the extra point. This would be big later on in the game. West Van has the ball but is forced to punt next quarter. Steven Obergfell receives it and makes a nice little juke to the outside before bursting down the left sidelines, where it's just him and the kicker, but he's taken down. Nice return there. Next cue, Charlie Welsh under center, and he knows exactly where this one's going before the snap. Checking it all the way to Ethan Whiting, what a catch. Next play for West Van, and Charlie Welsh finishes the job with a 2-yard touchdown. West Van back in it. West Van goes for the PAT, and regardless of what you see at the bottom of the screen, they shank it wide left. But West Van would eventually get the ball back, and they needed to score, so Welsh tosses it up, and it went right into the hands of Crescenzo Anthony. ND pumped in their field position. Next play, Anthony, the man with the INT, is sacked and fumbles it. West Van recovered. West Van moves it downfield and get inside the Juggler red zone, where Charlie Welsh dips it out to the right and throws a duck, sealing the deal for the Jugglers. 7-6. Rutland, Fulton. Fulton has the ball in Rutland's red zone, and Isaac Olson hands it off to big bad Caden Doyle, and nobody is going to stop this guy. Fulton up 6-0. Fulton would get the extra point and kick it off to Rutland, where Jacob Birchfield would be waiting. Fulton, maybe don't kick it to this guy in the future, because he's got a couple nice moves, and would be gone down the sidelines. This guy is just way too fast. For Fulton, the play was called back because of a hold, but the only thing they would hold after that was their breath, as Dakota Robertson bursts to the outside and fights off tackles like it's his day job. This one would be all tied up. Next quarter we go. We have a little bit of trickery from the white and maroon. Isaac Olson dishes it off to Caden Doyle, over to Jeff Hahn, back to Olson, who finds Hahn once again. This time Hahn would go solo as he eviscerates Rutland, cutting so much you'd think he was a DJ. But Fulton would be forced to punt. Following cue, Olson mishandles the handoff and Rutland pounds all over it, costly turnover. Rutland would force them to pay. Dakota Robertson reintroducing himself, putting Rutland ahead 1 score. Fulton would retake it, but would be forced to punt, so Rutland thought they'd take the time to really pull ahead, and Robertson, just like that, scores his 3rd touchdown of the day. Later in the 4th, just to say they could, Rutland's Kazu Sakata puts the icing on the cake, with Rutland beating Fulton 26-14. Barsby, Argyle. Barsby starts off with it. Nate Durkin rolls out, throws a nice little pass to Johnny Nguyen, 20-yard gain. The next play after that, Durkin finds his buddy Alexandre Bonnetplume, and he gets another 20-yard gain. Barsby comes out guns ablaze. Later in the drive, Durkin tosses up a beautiful touchdown. No! It's picked off! Argyle runs it down, and that would be the last play of the half. But Barsby would retake the ball in the second, and Nate the Great begins to pick away at Argyle once again, this time inside Argyle's 30-yard line. Barsby moves downfield and they get some nice blocking on the end, allowing Jaden Easterbrook to oh so elegantly punch it in. Barsby gets the PAT after that. But Argyle wasn't about to sit back idly. Cole Theobald under center and he rolls out to hook up with big Christian Laurie for a 21-yard gain deep into JB territory. Fourth quarter, seconds remain. Argyle needs a touchdown and they get it. Big play for Argyle. Argyle down 1, but what's this? No PAT? Cole Theobald runs around like a madman looking for an open receiver but can't connect. Argyle loses this one 7-6. Now let's take a look at our AAA scoreboard in the Eastern Conference. Terry Fox runs over Mowat 52-22. STM clobbers Centennial 43-14, and Kelowna kills Mount Boucherie 39-6. With the wins, all three teams carry on their undefeated campaigns, while Mount Boucherie sits at 500 with Mowat and Centennial dropping to 0-2, and Tweedsmuir with the bye still sits at the bottom. Taking a look at the rest of the scores around AAA high school football, BC tops Tweedsmuir 41-14, SDSS dismantles Carson Graham 41-6, Salmon Arm shuts out Valley View 12-0, Langley upsets Seaquam 32-16, and Belmont beats Bolinas 35-6. Over in AA, Bateman beats Holy Cross by a touchdown, Abbotsford beats up Windsor 35-6, Vernon tops Pitt Meadows 20-6, Corelliu embarrasses Kelly Road 55-0, Nanaimo loses to Westside 21-6, and PGSS hands it to Dutchess Park 54-18. This week's TDBC top 5 AAA teams remain the same as last week, with South Delta, Terry Fox, and Vancouver College all winning big, while Mount Doug and New West were on bye week. This week's high school player of the week is Kelowna Owls' Parker Simpson, who rushed for 216 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, while also going 5 for 9 as quarterback, throwing for 75 yards.
Joining us now on Skype is the BC High School Player of the Week, Parker Simpson. Parker, you play QB, running back, wide receiver, and safety. So my first question to you is, are you the only player on the team?
Oh, not at all, not at all. That's it might seem like that a couple times, but no, definitely got 10 other guys with me. Everyone does their part.
Now, Parker, we've seen the Kelowna Owls rolling through teams recently. How do you see you guys doing down the stretch?
I feel like this year, I definitely feel like we're underrated this year, but we've got a lot this year special because like most of us have been together this is our 7th or 8th year, so a lot of senior guys and veteran guys that have like we went to provincials and won back in city football, so we've definitely been in some like tough spots and done good in playoffs before. Not so much in high school yet, but that's what we're looking to do like this year. So I definitely trust like we have leaders and veteran guys on this team.
Now, Parker, it's obviously tough being a team from the Okanagan. You guys have a lot of traveling to do. How does that take a toll on your team kind of as the season progresses?
Honestly, I think that it helps our team a little bit. That might sound weird, but I love going on those bus trips. We have like, that's where we have our most fun, I'd say. Bus trips, they always get pretty crazy, and I don't know, it's just good bonding time. So if anything, I would say it helps. As long as we know to get ready before the game, and like there's a point where we kind of got to chill and stop fooling around and start focusing. I don't think I like the bus trips.
Fair enough. And the last 2 games you guys played against Mount Boucherie, Lord Tweedsmuir. Really no contest in this one for either of you guys. But your next 2 games are against WJ Mowat and Terry Fox. How do you guys prepare for teams like that?
Yeah, Mowat has always been, I guess they're like always a powerhouse. They've been really good for years. And same with Fox. It's sort of the same stuff we've been doing all along. We're sort of even simplifying everything we do. I don't know, our coaches always say like we don't want to add too much stuff, just keep it simple. So if anything, we're just going back to what we did in the first couple of weeks when we started and trying to perfect that stuff, because that's like the base to everything we do. So start with that, and if we can get that down, then we should be pretty good.
Now, Touchdown BC is obviously a football show, but as it turns out, you're the starting point guard for the Kelowna Owls, and you guys are expected to go #1 in the province. Can you tell us a little bit about what your predictions are for your team this upcoming basketball season?
Yeah, we just had our first tryout, sort of, not really anything official, just sort of get everyone in the gym this morning, do a little tryout sort of thing, and it's looking like the energy was great. Everybody, that's the same thing with football, kind of. We've got a lot of grade 12s, so we've been playing together for a while too. Like, I think we should like have a really high goal this year, try to be one of the best teams ever. That's honestly what I'm shooting for. Try to win provincials, try to be known as one of like the best teams of all time. I mean, that's I think we got to set our sights high like that.
Now, it's only early October, but have you made any decision about what you're going to do next year? Are you thinking more basketball or football, or what are you thinking at this point?
Right now it is like 50-50 completely. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I love them both, and that's what I tell everyone. Which sport I'm in, that's like what I put my time into and focus on. So, right now, I love football. I'm hardly thinking of basketball, but as soon as football ends, it switches right into basketball, and I can't even really see football. So that's how it's always been, sort of. It's weird, but it's just always been like that. I love them both.
Well, there you have it. The man that could do it all, our BC High School Player of the Week. Parker, thanks for coming on the show. Welcome to the BC High School Report. Joining us in the studio, as he does every week, is our BC High School insider, Dino Jeremiah. Now, Dino, we had a couple big games this weekend. Terry Fox, you were talking last week, they have a bunch of big weapons on offense, and they really showed that against WJ Moet. But let's talk a little bit more about Kelowna. They played against Mount Boucherie and destroyed them. What do you think about Kelowna?
Well, it's one of those teams that each week we see them playing great games. Parker Simpson, for sure, their leader. And I think what's happened to them is because of the play of Parker, their whole team is gaining confidence as the season goes on. So he's elevating their play, which is good, obviously, for them. But I expect they're going to be right in the mix as we see the season go through and start to hit playoff time, because they've got that weapon. They're starting to play really well on defense. So they're a team to be noted.
Yeah, they have looked really good. And obviously Barsby, AA team, goes into Argyle, beats them. Now, is this a case of a AA team being extremely good, or does Argyle have some stuff to work on?
I think it's a combination of both. John Barsby has typically been a strong team in AA. They're one of those teams that, down the road, I think we'll see maybe competing at the AAA level, because their consistency at AA being in that upper echelon, that's the next step for them. Argyle's newly this year, first year in AAA, so they're still making an adjustment. They're still finding their way. So as they go through the season, I think we'll continue to see Argyle get better. Their players, they're well balanced. They've got great coaches, and I expect that after a year of this AAA schedule, they're going to continue to get better.
Now, Dino, you're a Notre Dame guy. I'm a Vancouver College guy. Couple big games. Yeah, there you go. Couple big games for us this week. You guys play Mount Doug. We play South Delta Secondary.
Yeah.
What is going to happen in these two games?
Well, I think it's a big pivotal game for both Vancouver College and Notre Dame. Teams like Notre Dame, Vancouver College, New West, they're always kind of scratching the surface of that top group. And until you beat a top team, you're not in that top group. So Vancouver College trying to take on South Delta. Until they beat South Delta, Mount Doug, Terry Fox, they're not in that group. So it's a pivotal game for them. It's a pivotal game for Notre Dame. Can they go to the island and take on Mount Doug, come together, and can they be in that top echelon of the AAA?
Now, it's been 2 weeks of the Eastern Conference, and exhibition play is now done for the rest of the conferences in AAA. Who are the teams that have really stood out to you so far?
Well, as we mentioned, and you mentioned at the beginning here, Terry Fox is a very strong team. They're well balanced across the board, good quarterback, good running back, nice passing attack, strong on the offense and defensive lines. So they're a tough team to beat. And I think they have that experience through their program, whether it's junior or senior, of playing playoff football and having success. So they've got a winning tradition there. And again, like I just mentioned, Mount Doug and South Delta, they're in that group as well because they're the top teams. They're undefeated, and until somebody knocks them off, they're the teams to beat. Other than that, I mentioned earlier that Vancouver College really impressed me with their defense. I think their defense can take them a long way. This weekend is certainly going to be the test for them against South Delta.
Well, you heard it here first. That's your BC High School Report with Dino Jeremiah.
Defense might not win championships, but it definitely helps win games. This could not be more true in BC community football. Midget leader, the CMFA Falcons, have allowed 11 points against in 4 games. Bantam leader, the South Delta Rams, have allowed 15 points in 5. And in junior bantam, the CMFA Raiders have allowed, get this, 0 points in 4 games. It seems if you don't let the other team score, you have a better chance to win. Who knew? Now let's take a look at the week that was BC community football.
Let's start off with some Pee Wee VCFL action. Chilliwack Blue taking on Maple Ridge Gold. Chilliwack's Sebastian Gonzalez pumping his Giants up before the game with some incredible dance moves. His teammates are loving it. First cue, running back Josh Caverly takes the handoff, finds a seam, and it's his pure speed after that, leaving everyone in the dust and going 55 yards to the house. Second quarter, Giants would find the Enzo again. This time it's Lucas Fever with the QB keeper. Someone check this kid's temperature. Third quarter, it's time for Alden Sanders with the QB keeper. He scores from 5 yards out. Chilliwack up 22. Maple Ridge would get on the board. It's Devin Crenshaw with the carry. He puts a juke move on the defender, cuts outside, then back inside. It seemed no one could touch this kid. He goes 70 yards for the major on a highlight reel play. Chilliwack Blue to win this one though, 22-6 against Maple Ridge Gold. After the TD, this is what we like to see. Giants' Jace Nissel gives his opponent some props. Great sportsmanship. More Pee Wee action. Chilliwack Red against Abbotsford White. Chilliwack execute a perfect QB sneak. Raiden Maston keeps it and takes it in for 6. Same quarter, it's Falcons' Ursia Volt who takes the handoff, dips, and dodges every Giant on the field until breaking away for a very long TD. Only thing was, a penalty brought the play back. No touchdown. Second quarter, Giants' Travis Witchy throws down a huge hit and causes a fumble. Falcons recover. Falcons would get on the board with a great throw from their pivot Jaden Finn to Caden Sazareth Johnston. Jaden and Caden team up for the score. Giants' next drive, it's Ethan Ivey with a big tackle, throwing his opponent to the ground. Chilliwack's next drive, it's running back Austin Wegener, who rumbles past everyone. Go, go, go! But at the end of the play, he coughs up the football. The Falcons recover. Giants would take the lead in the third. It is running back Travis Richley who runs the ball in for the touchdown. In the fourth, Falcons running back Tico Lee breaks some tackles, gets some blocks, and he would score. But Chilliwack wins this one, 14-13. Now let's take a look at what happened in Midget this past weekend. In the Battle of the Valleys, Cowichan beats Comox by a rouge. Here are the standings for Midget. The CMFA Falcons have a 4-point lead going into week 6. Now to Bantam we go. Here's a look at the scores. The standings are quite close with the Rams on top, followed by Victoria, North Surrey, and then North Langley. Now let's take a look at what happened in Junior Bantam and Pee Wee this past weekend.
When we come back from break, the UBC Thunderbirds hope to rebound with a win against the Alberta Grizzly Bears.
Crown Produce secures produce locally and from around the world for Canadian retailers. Crown Produce is also proud to secure sponsorship of university football on Shaw. Crown Produce, supporting Canadian retailers and Canadian amateur football.
Welcome back to Touchdown BC. Ty, big game this past weekend for UBC. I know it was a must-win for your alma mater.
Yeah, it was. Coming off a tough loss against the Huskies at home last week, UBC knew going into Alberta was going to be no walk in the park. With both sides tied at 2-2 on the season, the Golden Bears would do whatever it took to prevent them from losing their third straight game.
T-Birds, Golden Bears. Michael O'Connor drops back and finds a streaking Alex Morrison, putting the Birds up 11-0 from the get-go. Down 21-0, bad news Bears. Alberta's starting QB Ben Koczynski gets horse collar down and injures his knee. He'd be forced to leave the game. Brad Baker would have to fill in for him after that nasty injury. UBC up 13 at the end of the third. O'Connor finds Ben Cummings and the Birds put this one out of reach.
Welcome to the UBC Report. We're lucky enough this week to be on the Crown Countdown U set, and joining me as he does every week is the voice of Canada West football on Shaw TV, Jim Mullen. So let's jump into it, Jim. The T-Birds looked like a completely different team this week against the Golden Bears and then against the Huskies. What happened?
Well, they made some adjustments on offense. First of all, they decided to make a commitment to the running game. They were facing an Alberta front seven that's a little undersized on the defensive line. They decided to change a few things up in their blocking package, especially up front with their O-line. And they went from an offense that averaged 51 yards per game rushing to an offense that had over 260 yards rushing. They relied on Brandon Deschamps. He got more than the normal 8 or 9 touches of the ball that he's got up until this point. I believe he had 18 carries in this game, 89 yards, just going from memory on that one. Will Watson was very potent in terms of taking the jet sweep, turning it up inside to find some inside yards instead of catching the ball as a receiver. First time this year that UBC had more rushing yards than passing yards in a game, which is a huge thing for them. On the defensive side of the ball, they decided to go away from using match coverage for the most of the time. James Colsey III, the new defensive coordinator with UBC, who was previously at SFU and a former Florida State Seminole, had been using match, but in the Canadian game, with the wider field, with the need for communication, I think he was putting his players on an island at times, and he made the necessary adjustments. We saw all kinds of different coverages that did not allow Alberta to use their receivers in bunch formations and create that sort of confusion. So I don't think it helped the Alberta Golden Bears that they lost Ben Koczynski with an injury late in the second quarter. But it was the adjustments that UBC made, in addition to getting some good special teams and using a gadget play at the right time on specials, that really helped them seal the deal in this game.
And as you mentioned earlier, with that nasty horse collar tackle that took Koczynski out of the game, and UBC was up big and 21-0 at one point, how much of a difference did that make to the end of this game?
Well, I think Brad Baker, when he came in, another freshman, by the way, Koczynski's a freshman, Baker's a freshman, a lot of first-year players on that Alberta team. I think when he came in, he looked okay. He had moved the ball a bit towards the end of the first half. But when UBC started to bring pressure on Baker, create some confusion and some pressure in the backfield, I think that's when they had him throwing off the back of his heels in a situation where he had to try to engineer some kind of rally. When you look at that front seven for the UBC Thunderbirds, every one of them in a starter's position has a sack or two here or there. So, you know, while there had been shortcomings in the secondary for the Thunderbirds, certainly with the front seven, they've been very effective, and they put pressure on Baker when they needed to, and they kind of exposed them.
And we were talking last week about how bad UBC's offensive line was. O'Connor finished today, he had a great game actually, 21 for 32, 2 touchdowns, over 200 yards in the air. Did they give him a lot more time this week, or what was the difference there?
Well, I think being able to rely on the running game was one thing for the Thunderbirds. It certainly builds the confidence of an offensive line when you can start blocking downhill against guys. I also think that they were facing maybe the worst front seven in the Canada West, at least the most undersized. Calgary really exposed them in that game where they gave up 80 points. That being said, they got the job done. They had made some adjustments on the offensive line. And you know what? O'Connor can throw all day and have all kinds of time. There were a couple of times where he had about 7 steamboats.
And we talked last week as well about the logjam in second place. Obviously, that's changed a lot with all the different matchups. Now UBC's at 3-2, and they have next week's a bye week, of course, and then they play Alberta again. What do you think is going to happen in that game? Is Alberta going to change up their game plan, or UBC?
I think that both coaching staffs will have that extra bit of time to take a look at what worked and what didn't work, and what surprises the UBC defense, for example, through the way of Alberta's offense. It'll be interesting to see what sort of chess game they play. But it's always so much harder to win on the road in the Canada West. We were talking off camera, actually, about having that limited roster on the road. That limits your possibilities in terms of some of the packages that you can put in terms of offense or defense or receiver packages in the case of the Alberta Golden Bears. So I think it's going to be very tough for Alberta to win on the road. I think 2 years ago they came into UBC looking kind of okay, like they were finding their feet, and they lost 60-0, a record win for the Thunderbirds for any game going back to 1924. It's been a tough place for Alberta to find victories.
Now, I'm not saying we're going to win 60-0, but UBC's chances might be better. But we'll have to see next week. That's UBC Report with Jim Mullen.
It's no surprise after 6 weeks of CIS action that there are many BC-born players near the top of national stats. Surrey native and Manitoba Bison Jamel Lyles is not only 6th in the nation in rushing, but is number 1 when it comes to all-purpose yards. That is impressive. British Columbia's also hold 3 spots in the top 10 for total tackles across the CIS. Now here is the CIS BC-born player report from this past weekend.
Let's start with Manitoba Bison's receiver Dustin Peterson. The Nanaimo native and former Vancouver Island Raider had 6 catches, 131 yards, and a score in a win against Regina. Mount Allison's pivot and STM alum Brandon Lay threw for a TD and also added another one on the ground in a win against rival Acadia. Now let's take a look at the rest of the BC-born players that had impact games in the CIS this past weekend.
Well, that about does it for us here at Touchdown BC. Adam, what are your plans for Thanksgiving?
I'm going to watch some football, rake some leaves, and then cap it off with a nice KFC dinner.
I wish we could invite you to ours, but our kids' table's full. So, he's Adam Kordick. I'm Ty Clark. We'll see you next week.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Touchdown BC is sponsored by